The number sounds fake. $300 trillion. So large that the human brain can't really picture it. Not in cash. Not in gold. Not even in years of work. It's a number that floats above reality. Abstract, distant, harmless. Until you realize something very simple. Every dollar of debt is someone else's asset. Which means if the world owes $300 trillion, then somewhere, someone owns $300 trillion. And it isn't you. Most people think debt is something governments owe to themselves, or something banks shuffle around in spreadsheets that never really matters. But that story only works if debt disappears when it's created. It doesn't. Debt is a contract. It always has two sides. A borrower and a lender. A promise and a claim. When you take out a mortgage, you don't owe the system. You owe a specific institution. When a government issues a bond, it doesn't vanish into thin air. Someone buys it. Someone holds it. Someone collects interest on it, year after year. Now scale that up from your house to the entire planet. Trillions in U.S. treasuries. Trillions in European bonds. Trillions in corporate debt. Trillions in consumer credit. Layer upon layer of promises stacked on top of each other, all quietly transferring money from one side of society to the other. And here's the uncomfortable part. The borrowers are visible. Households, businesses, governments. You can see them. You can feel them. You are one of them. The lenders are not. They don't show up in your daily life. They don't knock on your door. They don't have a face on the evening news. But they sit on the other side of every interest payment you make. Every tax dollar that goes towards servicing debt. Every dollar that flows upward before you ever get to touch it. You were taught that debt is a way to get ahead. A loan for a home. A loan for education. A loan for a business. But in aggregate, debt is not a tool. It is a funnel. A funnel that moves money from people who work to people who own. Once you see it that way, the world starts to look different. Rising rents. Higher taxes. Endless government deficits. Shrinking savings. They are not random failures. They are the surface symptoms of a system designed around one core rule. Borrowers must pay. Lenders must collect. And the more debt there is, the more powerful the lenders become. That's why the number keeps growing. Not because it's out of control, but because it is incredibly profitable for the side that owns it. The world's financial system is not balanced between borrowers and lenders. It is tilted, heavily, quietly, in favor of the ones who hold the claims. And the strangest part is that almost no one knows who those people actually are. We see governments arguing over budgets. We see families struggling with bills. We see businesses taking on loans to survive. But we almost never see the other side of the ledger, the side where the interest accumulates. The side where wealth grows simply because money was lent long ago. $300 trillion is not just a big number. It is a map showing who owes and who is being paid. And if you follow that map far enough, you don't find chaos. You find ownership. To understand who really lent the money, you have to forget the picture most people have in their heads. It isn't a room full of rich individuals writing checks to governments. It isn't a vault where all the world's savings are stored. It is something far more quiet. Most of the global debt is owned by institutions that almost no one ever thinks about. Pension funds, insurance companies, central banks, sovereign wealth funds, giant asset managers. They don't make headlines. They don't give speeches. They simply buy. When a government needs money, it sells bonds. When a corporation needs cash, it issues debt. When households borrow, banks bundle those loans and sell them. And who buys them? The same massive financial entities, over and over again. Your retirement fund, your insurance premiums, your country's reserves. All of it gets funneled into debt. So, in a strange way, people are lenders, but not in control. Your money is handed over to institutions that decide where it goes, who it earns from, and who carries the risk. You don't own the debt. You are used by it. This is why the system feels so detached from everyday life. The real lenders are not individuals. They are pools of capital so large that they operate like gravity. Money flows toward interest the way water flows downhill. And once that structure is in place, it begins to shape everything else. Governments cannot stop borrowing because the buyers of their bonds expect more. Corporations cannot escape debt because shareholders demand constant growth. Households cannot get ahead without loans because prices are built on borrowed money. Debt stops being a tool and becomes the environment. This is also why crises never truly reset the system. When things break, the same institutions step in and buy even more debt. They purchase failing bonds. They absorb collapsing markets. They come out the other side owning a larger share of the financial world than before. From the outside, it looks like chaos. From the inside, it looks like consolidation. Every shock transfers ownership from weak hands to strong ones. And over time, that creates a quiet hierarchy. At the top are entities that own claims on nearly everything: homes, businesses, governments, even future tax revenue. Below them are borrowers who work, spend, and pay, but never quite catch up. You can feel this hierarchy even if you don't see it. When wages struggle to rise but asset prices explode, when rent climbs faster than income, when savings feel pointless and debt feels unavoidable, those are not accidents. They're the natural outcome of a world where the claims on money grow faster than the money itself. The lenders don't need to be visible. They only need to be positioned. And right now, they sit at the center of a system that turns nearly every economic activity into a stream of interest flowing upward. $300 trillion is not scattered around the world. It is concentrated, and concentration is power. Once you realize that debt is ownership, the past 50 years start to make unsettling sense. Before the modern debt explosion, wealth was built slowly. Factories produced things. Workers earned wages. Savings mattered. But when finance took over, the rules changed. Money no longer needed to create something to grow. It only needed to be owed. Interest did the rest. This is when lending stopped being a service and became a strategy. Instead of investing in businesses and waiting for profits, large institutions could simply lend and collect. Governments guaranteed repayment. Central banks stabilized markets. Losses were socialized. Gains were privatized. It was the safest bet in the world. And so, debt expanded into every corner of life. Homes became financial products. Education became a revenue stream. Healthcare became a billing system. Each loan was a new claim on someone's future. The more people borrowed, the more the owners of debt earned. The more they earned, the more they could lend. The system fed itself. Over time, this created a strange inversion of power. People who work for a living became more fragile. People who own financial claims became more secure. You could miss a paycheck and fall behind. They could miss nothing and still collect. The world now runs on this imbalance. It explains why markets can soar while living standards stall, why asset owners feel rich while workers feel squeezed, why governments panic over interest rates but not over inequality. Interest is the heartbeat of the system, and the people who receive it control the rhythm. But here's the part that makes it feel almost invisible. Most of the lenders don't think of themselves as villains. They are not plotting in dark rooms. They are following incentives. They are protecting portfolios. They're doing exactly what the system rewards. And the system rewards owning claims on the future. So the debt grows, and the claims grow, and the distance between who owes and who owns gets wider. This is why $300 trillion is so dangerous. Not because it might collapse tomorrow, but because it quietly transfers power every single day. Every interest payment shifts wealth. Every bond issue shifts control. Every bailout shifts ownership, until one side of the economy owns a growing share of everything, and the other side rents its own life back. That is what modern debt really is. Not money borrowed, time sold in advance. And the more of it there is, the less room there is to breathe. The The system would be easy to understand if it felt cruel, if there were villains and victims clearly separated. But what makes it so powerful is that it feels normal. Most people experience debt as a private problem, a mortgage, a credit card, a student loan, something personal, something manageable. But all of it is plugged into the same global machine. Your monthly payment does not disappear. It is collected, pooled, and passed upward through layers of financial structures until it reaches the institutions that sit at the top of the debt pyramid. That is why the world can be drowning in obligations while the financial sector remains calm. The system is not designed to reduce debt. It is designed to own it. And ownership creates stability for one side and pressure for the other. You can feel that pressure everywhere now. Households live paycheck to paycheck, even when they earn more than previous generations. Governments argue over budgets that never quite balance. Young people delay families, homes, and savings because the future feels pre-sold. This is not because people suddenly became irresponsible. It is because the cost of everything is built on interest. Prices include the debt of producers. Rent includes the debt of landlords. Taxes include the debt of governments. You are paying for loans you never signed. And because the lenders own the claims, they don't need to raise their voices. The structure does the work for them. Money flows toward them automatically. This is why even massive financial crises don't end the system. They reinforce it. When things break, the institutions with the most capital step in by distressed assets. Debt changes hands, but it never disappears. The players at the top come out larger. The rest of society comes out more dependent. So the world moves forward with more debt than before, and fewer places to hide from it. $300 trillion is not a burden spread evenly across humanity. It is a weight placed on one side, and a crown placed on the other. And the longer this continues, the harder it becomes to imagine an economy that doesn't revolve around borrowing. Because borrowing is no longer what we do. It is who we are. What makes the system so hard to escape is that it doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like normal life. You earn, you spend, you borrow, you repay. From the inside, it feels responsible. From the outside, it looks like a closed loop. Because the moment you step back, something becomes obvious. In a world where nearly everything is financed, the people who own the financing own the world. They don't have to run companies. They don't have to manage cities. They don't have to convince voters. They just have to collect. And collection never stops. Every government bond guarantees future tax revenue. Every mortgage guarantees future rent or wages. Every corporate loan guarantees future cash flow. $300 trillion is a claim on tomorrow, a claim on labor that hasn't happened yet, on resources that haven't been extracted yet, on people who haven't even been born yet. This is why the system feels so heavy, even when nothing dramatic is happening. The future is already spoken for. The more debt grows, the more tomorrow gets preallocated to servicing yesterday. And that changes how the present feels. It's why growth no longer feels like freedom. It's why productivity no longer feels like progress. It's why even good economic news never quite brings relief. Because underneath it all, there's a quiet understanding. Someone else owns a growing piece of what you will earn. The lenders don't need to be cruel. They don't need to be corrupt. They only need to be positioned. And right now, they are positioned at the center of a system that converts nearly all economic activity into streams of interest flowing upward. That's what $300 trillion really represents. Not money, leverage over future. The reason this matters isn't because the system is about to collapse tomorrow. It's because a system built this way doesn't need to collapse to change your life. It tightens, slowly, invisibly, year after year. More debt means more claims. More claims mean less room to move, until the economy feels less like a place where people build, and more like a place where people service. Once you see that, the question changes. It's no longer, how much debt is there? It becomes, who owns our future? If you want to keep unraveling how these systems really work, what they mean for you, and where the pressure points actually are, that's what this channel is here for.